Sure. Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
I am going to just do the quick intro and then we can get right into our business. This is the Capital Improvements Committee. It's Thursday, December 1st, 2 p.m. We are hybrid in the City Hall meeting room, which is room 203, and also on Zoom. And these meetings for Capital are held annually in accordance with the city charter, and they are not hearings, but they are working sessions with no public comment portion. And the last thing I need to do as housekeeping here is indicate that we are recording this meeting. And if anyone else is also recording, they should state that now. Councilor Forgy, I doubt you are recording it. And if you could just let us know, Stephanie, if you are recording, that would be helpful. And we'll move right into our agenda. We have Chief Strand from the Fire Department. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Excellent. So I'm excellent. We have we've gotten your information that you forwarded ahead of time to Liz, so you can tell us whatever you would like to tell us. This is your opportunity. Yep.
I will go over the 3 items that the fire department is requesting this year, and highlight that the 5-year capital plan that we put together has been a moving target. And so some things that were listed for this year have been pushed off, and we've made some changes. But I wanted to put together the 3 priority items for the fire department for this year. The first one being replacement of rescue equipment. Several years ago, when I first took over as chief, we used to have a larger line item in our budget where we would try to get this yearly. That has been removed probably 6 years ago. And so we fall a little bit behind, and this is catching up on some of our rescue equipment. And it's just basically to replace, we need a new thermal imager camera, 2 sets of rapid intervention SCBA packs. These are basically the air packs that the firefighters wear. These are packs that are in a container that, God forbid, we have a down firefighter in a structure fire. This is what we get to swap them over to get them on air if they're running out of air on their back. And it's really a critical piece of rescue equipment. And then some basic ropes, harness, and extrication tool. One of them, one of the large tools that we need to replace is what we call an extrication ram. It's basically a large piston that we use to push or pull heavy items, such as we can put it in the corner of a car and actually push the whole dash off of a trapped person within a motor vehicle. And the last item is a gas meter or 2. We're hoping to pick up a couple additional gas meters. So that's the first request. The second request is to replace the 2005 Kubota UTV with a new UTV. I did bring a picture so people can get a sense of what we're looking at. The one that I'm showing is about a $65,000 machine. That is not the one we are going for, but it's basically like that. This UTV that we have, what it's used for is it's used for a lot of off-road scenarios. So such as a injured hiker in the woods, a brush fire, deep-seated off the road. We use it to shuttle equipment at larger events. We use it at details for EMS and fire protection. It will have a small pump and tank and stretcher all combined in its little package in the back here. So I will try to.
I actually have the photo. It's in the materials Liz provided to us. Thank you.
So it's a small off-road vehicle that is a crucial function for what we do. Our vehicle is a 2005 and the transmission's starting to get a little wonky on it. It struggles going up steep terrain and things like that. So we're hoping to replace that with a tune of $46,000. Any questions about that one?
You only have one, is that correct?
One. That's correct. It's a 2005 Kubota.
Is that unique to the fire department? I guess why I ask, like, is it something that either the DPW or the police would also have something similar?
So the police,
Doesn't she?
I don't know if Christie has one. I know the police department has a four-door larger one that they haul people with. Ours is specifically designed for firefighting and patient transport.
Sure.
It is very common within fire departments. When we first got it, it wasn't, but now just about every fire department has a similar item
Yeah.
like this. It's
Yeah.
really turned out to be one of those, we don't use it all the time, but when you need it, you
I
need
get
it.
it. When you need a specific tool, sometimes nothing else is the right solution. I totally get that. Yeah.
And when
Thank you.
when we moved from the old firehouse, it carried a lot of equipment from the old firehouse down to the temporary. So it came in pretty handy in that regards too.
I do think Christie has one as well. Small,
Okay.
Yeah, I
more
think-
passenger oriented than anything.
Yeah, I
I
think she
feel,
has like a
I
golf
really
cart.
feel like the school committee needs one of those too. So, yeah.
Yep.
That's a joke. I do not feel like the school committee needs one of those. That is a joke.
So any other questions about that?
I'm just curious, I don't know if you know, but do you know like how many off-road miles like the city has, like, through Highland Park or all the parks and all of that where you can't take
That is
actual
a great question.
vehicles?
Yes.
And that would be a question that Christie would know. I do
I'm
know.
just kind of curious because that's, there's probably quite a lot.
I do know Christie's working on a grant that we're supporting to mark all the trails with mile markers and stuff. And hopefully we'll get a good sense
Yeah.
then, but it's, I
I'm
think
writing
it's
it
pretty
down and we can
significant.
follow up.
Yeah.
I'm writing
Yeah,
it down.
me
We can
too.
follow up with
I'll
her.
tell you who else may know, and that would be Eric, because he's in
Yeah.
charge of doing all of our GPS.
Yeah.
So my guess is he's got it.
Okay.
Or a good chunk of it anyway.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? And the last item that I have, I wasn't going to put on this year, and I was going to push it off. And I'm really struggling with the large item, the apparatus that we have. We have been very successful under the current guidance of our mayor and the city council to replace a good portion of our fleet. I have a really big piece of equipment coming on for the first time next year. It should have been replaced in 2020. We pushed it back to 2025, and the estimated cost for that piece of equipment is $2 million. And so trying to fit all the other equipment in, knowing that that is looming on the horizon is a challenge. So the ambulance that I'm asking for would replace a 2009 ambulance. We just took delivery of a new ambulance. This is our second ambulance. It's not going to make the life cycle of coming out of the ambulance revenue account. And let me explain that for a bit. The ambulance we just purchased is purchased out of the ambulance revenue account. And it can support that ambulance, but that lease is a 5 or 6 year lease. And that account will not support two ambulances at one time. So this is being asked through capital to replace the 2009 second ambulance. The reason why it's going forward now is because the anticipated build date is 2 years. So it used to be that you could spec out your ambulance and have it within a year. Now it's 2 years. So if it goes through the approval process, we're looking at May to June, order date around July of 24, we're not going to see delivery to 2026. And that's just too long to wait for an ambulance. Our ambulance is our heaviest used pieces of equipment. They respond to approximately half of the emergencies that the fire department responds to. Our ambulance that we're looking to replace, like I said, is a 2009 International that we picked up used, that was heavily used by another department before it even came to us. And our ambulance work is increasing and increasing and increasing as time goes by. So the ambulance that we just purchased, we ordered, I think it was close to 2 years ago, at the tune of just over $300,000. The cost of that has increased to about $410,000, $420,000. This ask is for 470,000. Sorry if I had on mute. 470,000. And the reason why this is the difference in this one is that this one needs a new auto lift and power stretcher. Now, what that means is an auto lift is there's a device that comes out of the ambulance that takes the stretcher and puts it out, drops the wheels, and then you can wheel the stretcher. And then when you have a patient, you bring the stretcher up to the ambulance, it's got hooks on it, picks it up, lifts it in. Our stretcher itself is an auto lift, which means it goes up and down by a push of a button. That's crucial because that saves back injuries. And that's the number one injury with ambulance is lifting patients. This helps you not lift patients. So that's why you see it a little bit more than just the 410 to 420, because it does include those two pieces of equipment, which are a substantial cost. The ambulance that we took delivery on, we are scaling back on the size of the cab. We're not going with the big cab like we just took delivery of. So we did scale back some of it, or it would be well over 500,000. So we are adjusting that quite a bit. But the ambulance has turned to be a pretty big part of our service now at the fire station. If something ever happens with our local provider, we really need to be in a place where we can sustain it, full time, and having proper equipment to do that would be the way to do that. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but this department really needs to have 2 ambulances. And so this is to replace the second ambulance. And again, it's at least 2 years out before we would even see it.
I see Counselor Forgy has her hand up. Christine, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me? Because I can't speak well. Chief, why 2 ambulances?
Great question, Counselor. Thank you for asking that. So there's multiple reasons. The primary reason is that if your ambulance goes out for general service, or has an accident, God forbid, or needs an oil change, your ambulance service is out of business if you have 1 ambulance. So this makes sure that we have an ambulance available all the time. It also is our secondary backup ambulance to our primary ambulance, which means that if the first ambulance, which often happens, is out on a call, and another medical call comes in, we're still able to handle that call without having to rely on our mutual aid partners to make up the difference. So it's really multifaceted, but those are the 2 top reasons. We are the second highest volume of patients into Franklin in the county. In regards to transports. The number 1 is being AMR, which services 6 communities. And so our call volume is just growing and growing, and this truck gives us the capability to handle the increased demand that the ambulance service is having.
Can I do a follow-up?
Of course. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you just took delivery on a new ambulance. Would you refresh my memory as to how much that costs?
Yeah, so we authorized $300,000 for the purchase of that ambulance. It ran about $325,000, but the $25,000 was with the trade-in, so it was about $300,000. The cost since we ordered that has gone up to just over $400,000 for basically the same rig. Actually, we're scaling back the rig, so it's not the same rig. But it's just the cost of the vehicles have gone up anywhere between 30 to 50%. In the last 2 years.
Is it your intention to rotate the ambulances going out, since one will be 1 year older than the other? Will the backup ambulance just sort of sit there and not get as much use, or so that further along the line there's more, it's older and it may not hold up as well? Or is it your intention to rotate them out so that the wear and tear on all of them will be equal?
That is a great question, Counselor. Thank you for asking that. It would be rotated. Currently, we can't do that because we have a new ambulance and a 2009 ambulance. Keep in mind that the delivery of this is going to probably be about 3 years. You'll have 3 years on the older ambulance, which is the new one right now. The life expectancy of an ambulance is about, front line is about 5 to 7 years, depending on the use of it. I think we could easily see 7 years on this truck. But absolutely, if this truck came within 3 years, they would be rotated and tried to share the load a little bit.
And where is AMR located?
They're on High Street, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jean, go ahead.
My question would be, how are the calls divided out when somebody calls 911 for a medical emergency?
That's a great question. These are going to be questions that I think I'm going to face at Ways and Means. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a great question. So the way that our 911 system works in the city of Greenfield right now is that we have a primary ambulance provider, which is AMR. Okay. AMR's responsibility is not only to the city of Greenfield, but is also to the hospital system, Bay State Health System. So they have equal roles with that. What happens when the first medical call comes in, if it's a high acuity medical call, life-threatening, they have determinants, right? And so if it comes in as a higher acuity medical call, we respond as a first response agency, and then they will respond with a paramedic. Oftentimes, that paramedic is unavailable. They get the first call that comes in. If they're unavailable, then we're asked to go primary. And so it's not determined by the nature of the call. It's divided by first come, first serve. First call that comes in is the first call that gets dispatched. Now, there's a lot of coordination that happens out in the field where if we have multiple calls going on and we're on scene with AMR and one of them happens to be a higher acuity call, then the medics will be cleared up and then we will take the patient and so forth. The other thing is that the fire department's responsibility within the city for EMS is we handle all non-life-threatening motor vehicle accidents as well. And so we're the primary transport for motor vehicle accidents that aren't life-threatening.
So do you still send the fire truck to all of the calls?
Great question. So it depends on the call. It used to be the fire truck went on every medical call. And what I mean by every medical call that falls into the high acuity level of calls. We don't go on every single medical. We probably go on half or a little bit more than half of the medical calls within the city will respond as first responders. The rest of them we don't respond to. When you see a fire truck in an ambulance, it's usually a really high acuity call. So it's a cardiac arrest. It's a overdose with somebody not breathing. Could be a motor vehicle accident. That's when you would typically see the fire call. Or if no ambulances are available, then the fire truck will go and wait for an ambulance to get there. So you may see it in that regards, but that typically doesn't happen. But if you see a larger response like that, it's usually because it's a very high acuity call. And, people ask me all the time about the number of responders on like a cardiac arrest, right? And so typically you have an engine of 3, 2 ambulances with 4, and maybe a police officer or 2 for a cardiac arrest. And people go, whoa, that's a lot of people, right? Everybody has a function that they need to do when they're at the cardiac arrest. I always use the analogy that, you hear a code blue in the hospital and everybody runs to that room where you've got 12 people in a small room, but we have to do that, but we also have to do it out in the field. In any condition, any room, and so that's why there's that volume of people. And our save rate is much, much higher than it's ever been. I hear stories all the time where the crews get there, a person's in full cardiac arrest, and they walk out of the hospital 2 weeks later. You never used to hear that. And so the system and what we have designed and how it's working works well within this community. And you know, they have saved many lives by the model that we have.
And so you get paid for the ambulance going for both case, whether the other ambulance is there or not?
If we transport,
Oh, okay.
we bill. If we don't transport, it's part of the services of the fire department. Yeah, that's a great question. And when we transport and we send it to a billing company, that money comes back into the revolving account, which pays for a great portion of running the ambulance for the fire department. In this particular case, it's not going to support the second ambulance, but it has supported the ambulance that we have now, training for EMS and other components.
Thank you. And it looks like Chris has another question. Go ahead.
Thank you. How many paramedics are there on AMR? And how many paramedics do you have on your ambulance, if you have any?
So we have one new firefighter that is working for his paramedic. We have 4 advanced EMTs, which used to be known as intermediate EMTs. So we do not run at the advanced life support level within the fire department. The city of Greenfield has a contract with AMR where they provide 2 ALS rigs, which means that there's at least 1 medic on each one of those rigs, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then they also have other rigs on top of that. But their commitment to the city is 2 ALS rigs committed to the city. They do transports out of Franklin Medical Center to Bay State Medical Center regularly. And I'm going to bring that up because it's important to understand that role that the medics play within that. So if you have a high acuity medical call, a stroke, a heart attack, some heart problem, a life-threatening long bone injury or something like that, there's a good chance that you need higher level of care. And so that higher level of care is Bay State Medical Center, okay? Oftentimes, that patient that's in dire need goes to the hospital calls 911, but they call it a 911 call, which means we need to get this patient, it's an emergent nature, we need to get them now to the Bay State Medical Center, whether it's a trauma or whatever. The medics are the ones that have to go on that because they're the ones that have to administer medication, IVs, intubation, and they have a lot of skills that they need to do. And these patients that they're taking out of Franklin are really, really sick. And so that's part of their role within the city too. And I remind people when it's, you know, because there's a question, well, that takes the medics available for 911 and it takes them out of the area to transport down to Springfield. And it does, but most of the patients that come out of Franklin are from Franklin County and a great portion of them are from Greenfield, and they need that higher level of care and they can only be transported by medics to get them down to the hospital. Now, we have worked closely with AMR where they've now instituted a new, it's a medic level transport rig that's all they do is shuttle patients from up and down the valley. It's a high acuity truck, but it is a major function that they do. And when they're doing that transport, that's when we step up and provide our level of care. Now, our level of care is a basic level of care, but what we're able to do is we're able to get on site, pick up a patient, and within 4 minutes, get them to the hospital. Mm-hmm. Most of the time when we're transporting, from the time we load them in the rig and we get them to the hospital, is under 4 minutes.
And you don't do patients outside of Greenfield?
We do provide mutual aid. If you have an ambulance by OEMS standards, you are available to respond mutual aid to other cities and towns. So yes, we do occasionally go to Leiden, Gill, and other communities.
But no transports. We don't do transports.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we do transports.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Franklin County's EMS is kind of a whole system, and there's a lot of players in it. And Greenfield has become a pretty big part of that. It used to be the city of Greenfield would draw a lot of mutual aid assets into the city for our sick and injured patients. With Greenfield Fire 10 years ago starting its program, we've been able to eliminate that quite a bit.
Counselor Forgy, did you have another question or comment?
Well, I think I'm good. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you,
Okay.
Chief.
Thank you, Counselor.
And Jean, are you? Done?
I'm good.
I am as well.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any last words, Chief, for us?
No, it's always a pleasure meeting with this group
Oh.
every year.
I did have one more thing. I'm sorry, and it may not be for you. It may actually be for Diana. Let me get to the right spreadsheet here. The ambulance spreadsheet that we got has a line for an annual service contract, but it doesn't have an amount in there. It may just be it was missed, or maybe it's been updated. This is from the shared folder that Liz provided us the spreadsheets in.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at that,
And
Amy, 'cause I'm not sure.
It's not a big deal. I just wanted someone to know that it looks like it's missing, at least in the copy I have. I don't have the book. Is it there in the book, Jean?
No.
Okay. So we'll need that amount at some point.
I do have another question. Is there a less expensive, toy to go through the woods and pick up patients and all that kind of stuff? I mean, is this?
UTV,
So so the short answer is there's always something cheaper. Whether it's appropriate or not is the question. And whether or not it will stand up and have durability and longevity is the question. The rig that I showed you here, this is the ideal rig that we would like to see in the fire department. This is a $70,000 rig. I couldn't come forward and ask for that. And so that's why it's at the number that we did. And we had there's a lot of stuff that you'll see on this that is, you have to keep in mind that the rig that we're talking about has to have good clearance to get over rocks, has to have a good transmission. It's got to be beefed up and powerful enough to handle any terrain that you could encounter. And a lot of times these vehicles are not going over roads. They're going over small dirt paths and the truck has to be able to do that. And so all the trucks, all the UTVs that we looked at are all within that price range. And then to add the stretcher, the tank and the pump on it, that's where the cost comes in.
Just thought
Yeah, no, listen, we looked at all options. We looked at a bunch of different scenarios. My goal has always been to not ask for the most expensive and really ask for what's we feel the most appropriate is for the city. And nothing with the big bells and whistles and things like this. This truck's got all the bells and whistles. We went through with a fine tooth comb and took out everything that we felt wasn't appropriate.
Well, if I were in Highland Park down
Yeah.
Cliff, I would want you to have the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know-
if you didn't have this, what would the means of rescue be for off-road? Would you have to get another would you have to work with another department, or how would?
If ours was unavailable, yes, we would have to wait for someone else to respond. This also does go out of town. We have used it out of town a lot of times, but
You go on search and rescue with other, yeah.
if we didn't have it, we just hope the Kubota keeps plugging away.
All right, but then you could get stuck out there yourselves.
Yeah, so in 2005, and Councilor Forgy may remember this, in 2005, we had a pretty significant injured person out at Point Seat Mountain someplace. It was in the winter and it took us a while to get there, and we had to call for a mutual aid, one of these, to come and get the patient. And the patient was in the snow and cold for I don't know, 45 minutes waiting for us to transport out of there. And the reason why we have this is because a gentleman who has passed said this should never happen again. And actually donated it to us. And that's why we've had it.
How does it get out of town?
We have a trailer.
Yeah, okay.
It's pulled on a trailer.
Councilor Forgy has another question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a final thought. The police department have a similar one to this. Is that correct, Chief?
They do. I'm not sure how they acquired it, and they may have got it through a grant, but I don't want to speak for that. Theirs is more of a troop carrier versus the equipment that we're looking at carrying.
So what does that mean? You said it's a troop carrier, carries people. So if you've got the terrain that somebody's escaped into, is that what it does? Drive?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not sure their application, Counselor, outside. I'm not sure the application that the police department uses it for, other than I know that they use it at the fair and details to shuttle their people around. And they've used it on search and rescues, but outside of that, I'm not sure the application that they use it for.
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you.
Can I just ask one
Of
more
course,
question?
please, go ahead.
Thank you. Just because I'm not familiar, but so your current ambulance that you just got, did you get an electric stretcher in that as well? Did you?
Great question. So we had already purchased a stretcher and the auto load system for both our rigs. And so the new ambulance that we just took delivery of, we were able to transfer from one rig into the other.
Okay.
By the time we take delivery of this second ambulance, that also has an end of life. Everything in the fire service and EMS seems to have an end of life. That will be well past its end of
Everything
life.
has an end
So
of life.
it's yeah. So it's gotta be replaced.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Thank you.
Everyone set? All right. Thank you again, Chief, for your time
Thank
and
you.
answering all of our questions. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And I will also, on a personal note, say I'm super proud of Forrest, who's one of your newest firefighters. He is just a great guy.
He is. He's a good pickup. Probably would have been not the case if we were still in civil service. So we're happy to have him.
I'm so proud of him. So yeah, best of luck to him and all of you. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And as far as I know, we don't have anything else on the agenda. That is all that we have for today. Yes, Mayor, go ahead.
I can answer one or two of the questions that I walked away with from last week, or whenever the last time you met was.
Oh,
One of them
sure.
was on the
Please, go
Portland.
ahead.
One of them was on the Portland Loo. We were all a little confused as to how many and who pays. And so the question, as I recall, wasn't one approved in FY23 through ARPA? And I simply couldn't remember, but it was in fact the case. So the FY20, the one that, I spoke with Jennifer and Marlo this past week, and we can certainly begin to order that one sooner rather than later. So it's likely that would be ready for us for the spring for Chapman and Davis lot.
And that was the one that was presented to us for FY23, correct?
That's
the one we're
right.
talking
That's
about. Okay.
FY23. So,
Yeah.
which has been funded. And you have one on your FY24 for the number 2 one. Frankly, based on, and I'm not saying this is emphatically, but based on trying to find locations for them that meet the water sewer needs of the facility, we may not go for a number 3.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't take it out of the 5-year yet, but we probably wouldn't go for it. If we did, it would be someplace like Beacon Field that's used a lot and supports other events and things like that. So, but having two downtown, I mean, quite frankly, I'm not sure where the second one that we buy in FY24 will go, but we have a couple of other options downtown.
Great, thank you for that update. That's helpful.
Yeah. The only other thing, I think you sensed from Marlo last week that leasing DPW trucks was not necessarily what he would prefer. And I did run it by Liz, and I think she was sort of neutral on it one way or the other. You know, you can, they're probably not suitable at the end of the day. They're not the kind of, you can lease a car, you know, or a SUV or something like that, but a large truck, they're expensive leases.
Right.
So you might as well own it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Usually the lease rate is more expensive than the
Yeah.
borrowing if you.
Yeah, which I think was
Not
what
going to borrow.
Marlo said.
Sure.
Yeah.
She agreed
And they
with
have
that.
other fees associated with them. Yeah.
Sure.
It's not as much flexibility either.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the follow-up, Mayor. That's super
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Anything else before a motion to adjourn, or I would just take a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
There we go. I'll
Yes, you
second
did.
that. All right, and we do need to do a roll call vote to adjourn because we are hybrid. Member Wall
Yes.
and Counselor 4G.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm a yes, so we're adjourned at 2:38, and I will stop the recording. Thank you all.